because we have a lot of things to talk about today and a lot of information to share with you. And we want to be sure that you have time to ask any questions you might have and really go step by step through everything. So welcome to Zoom or Google Meet, which is best for you. We're going to talk about how to select the right platform, select the right tools within the platform, and just make the best use of your Zoom and Google Meet. So as we start off, we're going to start with our standard disclaimer.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
All right, now that you're all officially disclaimed, we'll do a few introductions. So I'm Sarah Brightwell. I think I've had the opportunity to meet many of you virtually over the past few months as we've done a number of virtual events. And I'm happy to be here with you again on the OIE Technical Assistance team. And then I'm happy to introduce my colleague, Olani Lilly.
Aloha.
Well, and now we want to do a few introductions for you. So in Zoom, if you were looking for the chat box, you're going to look at the bottom of your screen and you're going to see a little talk bubble. And if you click that talk bubble, it will open up the chat box. And we just ask, share with us if your name is not what is already on your picture. I know sometimes you're logged in maybe on someone else's account or you have a company account. So let us know who you are, your role, and what grant program are you here with? I know many of you may have more than one OIE grant even, but we'd love to see who is on as we join today. And I see Mandy was at the ready. She's like, I see the directions. I've got my info. She may have taken me up on that offer to go get a cup of coffee right before this. All right. And I see that starting to pop up. And this is a great time because I know this has caught me before. You'll notice that if you hit enter, it does not take you to the next row. It goes ahead and posts your information. So if you're wondering why your things are not going together, that is what happens with the enter in the chat box. All right, looks like we have a lot of folks from the demo programs, in particular, some of the NYCP grantees, and kind of from all over. Wonderful. Oh, ACE as well. All right. Well, keep doing your intros. Run through there, kind of see some of your peers that are on, because you're going to have an opportunity to really chat and share today. So as we get started, the other piece of Zoom that I want to show you and get you to test out is annotation. Some of you may have done this before. Some of you may not have done annotation before. So on this one, you're going to actually want to look at the top of your screen. And it's going to say that you're viewing Sarah Brightwell's screen. Next to that, depending upon which type of device you're using, you'll either see annotation tools or you may have to hit more and then go to annotate. And it'll look like a little pencil and say annotate. And when you open it, it brings up a little toolbar just like you see here on our screen. And this allows you to actually write on the PowerPoint that you're seeing. So test it out. You can use, if you use the little text button, oh, helps if I don't move the screen on you. So I can write a little message. If I use the draw, that's where people are getting these squiggle lines. You can use stamp. The stamp gives you a couple different things you can try, such as the arrow, the check, the X, a little heart, star, all kinds of good things. There's even an eraser if you did something you want to take back. All right, it looks like y'all are becoming quite the annotate pros. All right. Now, The first Zoom tip for you of the day. If you are using Annotate with your participants, let me show you what happens if I just go ahead and click to the next slide. All your drawings came with me. So you're not typically going to want people's drawings to come with you. So if you're using Annotate with your participants, then in your toolbar, you'll have the clear. Now you'll have the clear on yours right now, but that would only clear your drawings. If you're the host, I have the option to clear all the drawings, which takes away everything except the new stuff you're putting up. But so what we're going to do is we're going to stop annotating on this slide, and I'm going to clear all your drawings. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the next slide, and you're going to let me know where you are located. You can use whichever tool you like. I think the stamp one is easiest for this personally, but you can use whatever tool you feel like. And let's take a look at where everybody is tuning in from today. You can also get an idea of everybody's favorite stamp. Let's see. We possibly have somebody in Canada today. Looks like we've got a few kind of all over, lots up north and down south, out west. Very nice. And I don't know if the squiggle means that you're coming from a wide swath of Alaska or that was just your favorite mark. But at least one person from Alaska today as well. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. And this is just the first of many tools you're going to see that you can use in Zoom. And this is a great way to be able to do something like this and get feedback. You can have people actually type responses on the screen, and you as the host can move them around. You can do lots of neat things with this tool. Now, the other tip I have for you is, all right, so I'm going to clear all your drawings. Now, even though I've told you that I've cleared your drawings and we're moving on, inevitably someone will accidentally continue to annotate on the screen. So you as the host, when you're the host of a Zoom meeting, have the option. Again, this would be under more. You won't see it because you're not the host, but when you are a host, you would be able to disable annotation for others. So once I click that, you're not actually going to be able to annotate anymore. So I can do one final clear, and it keeps people from accidentally drawing on your slides throughout the rest of your day. So those are my first couple of Zoom tips for you as we also do our welcome activity. And now I'm going to turn it over to Alani.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing where you folks are all located. And now that we kind of get a sense of where you're at geographically, we want to get a sense of where you are as it relates to tech savvy. And so here's another tool that'll be popping up that Sarah will get into a little later on Zoom, and it's called a poll. And so really what we want to know is see whether you're a novice at tech or an expert or somewhere in between. So you can go ahead and take that poll. Okay, great. Looks like we're about even, Stephen, with novice, proficient, got a lot of competent. Awesome. Awesome. Well, looks like everybody got to take the poll. So thank you again. You can see the results of that poll. And we're about even as far as from novice to proficient. So great. So we'll move on to the next slide, where we will be talking about the objectives of today's session. So for today, well, we're going to be looking at our two platforms and just really focusing on Zoom and Google Meet, because a lot of people use these two platforms. And what we'll be looking at is the free versions, something that you can access with no cost to your organization or program. The other thing we'll be looking at is different engagement features within these two platforms and how you can use them. Again, we just went over the annotate and the poll feature. So we'll be going through how to set those up later on. And then another thing, another factor to take into consideration is really looking at the needs of your organization and maybe some of your cultural or community norms as you go to select the appropriate platform for your organization. So those are the three things we're going to be going through today. The next section is we're going to be looking at comparing both free versions. We'll be looking at three areas: technical requirement and security, meeting capacity and parameters, and interactive and presentation features. This slide that you see right here compares Zoom free version and Google Meet free version, technical requirements and securities. As you can see around availability, both of them have mobile apps and are readily available on any computer and devices, multiple devices, iPad, your even your phone. And then with related to security, a lot of these features are embedded actually in the platform. Some of them, like waiting room, you have access to and actually have to go in and say that you want to have that security measure. The next area we'll be looking at is interactive and presentation features. Okay, so you can see right here, as it relates to meeting time, they're a little different. Uh, if you are having a Zoom one-on-one meeting, uh, there is not the 40-minute, there's no time limit. However, if you add another person into that meeting, so if there's three of you, the Zoom already automatically picks that up and you are limited to 40 minutes. Google Meet has a time limit of 60. As you can see with the participant limit and the video interface, they're very similar. When it comes to recording, however, only Zoom free version allows for recording, and you actually have to store that recording on your desktop or hard drive. The next comparison will be looking at interactive and presentation features. Okay, so we've gone through some of the more popular interactive and presentation features and compared the two. Let me just put a little caveat here for people who are using or interested in Google. So when you see the paid version, that area, it's really not Google Meet paid version. It really depends on the version of Google that you have. So for example, if you have the free Gmail, if you have a free Gmail account and you get Google Meet free, you will only have access to the screen sharing, whiteboard, and chat. However, if you are working with a school and your school has an enterprise education version or an enterprise nonprofit version or even a business version, Google Meet allows you, the free version allows you to also be able to access the breakout rooms, polls, status, reaction, those bottom features. So just to try to provide some clarity around that. Um, so you have, again, screen sharing, whiteboard, chat, those three are available on both. And then when you get to the bottom features, Zoom provides more opportunity in the free version for you to access those features. And now we'll be moving on to Sarah. She's going to be going over and demonstrating Zoom demo, how to set up a Zoom meeting.
So as we get started looking at Zoom, I really want you to think about any questions that you might have. So as we're going through, if you have any questions, pop those over in the chat box, and we're going to be pulling those as we go throughout. We have another member of our team, Tracy, over in the chat box. She's going to be keeping her eye peeled for your questions. So this is really your opportunity to ask literally any question that you might have about these different platforms. So as I'm switching over to show you the Zoom screens and such, I do want to share one thing with you that I also put over in the chat box. And that is, if you are an education entity, you are actually able to request through Zoom an education account, and that will remove all of the time limits from your account. So you will no longer have to follow that 40-minute time limit. So just an option, and you'll actually go to where it says education plan here. and request offer. And basically, you're just going to put in kind of your contact info. They're going to check to make sure you're an education entity. And then that will turn your plan into an education plan, and you will not have a time limit any longer. So it does still have the 100 person capacity on it, but not the time limit. So just a nice thing. The other great thing is they have a lot of resources here, both for training and for just ideas of how to use Zoom in an education capacity. So just a couple of different things I wanted you to see there, but I'm going to hop over. If you log into your Zoom account online, and we're going to look at both ways today, because you can log into your Zoom account online through your internet browser, which is what I'm doing here, or you can download Zoom onto your computer, and it basically becomes a Zoom app. Now, I'll explain later which one I think is going to be the easiest for you to use, but I want to show you the online version because that's the one that most everybody at least has access to. So when you log in, you'll notice I have my little icon up here, which shows what account I'm in. And then I've got a lot of different things in here. So as I go across the top, I can go ahead and schedule a meeting straight from the screen, join a meeting, or host a meeting. And you can see it's already giving me the option of how I want to start that meeting. So I can do all of those functions straight from my online Zoom. But I really want to get into these features because this is where you're going to be able to really make your Zoom account work best for you. So we're going to start out with, it always opens into that meetings tab, but I want to go just straight down your options here. So you'll see I've actually logged into a different Zoom account that I use for a nonprofit I work with because I wanted to show you what's in the free basic level Zoom account. Okay. And then we'll kind of talk as we go throughout about other things that can be added if you choose to opt into a paid. So as you come in, you'll see you can change your picture. This is what shows up basically if you turn off your camera. So for myself, I'm going to turn off my camera right now, and you'll see I become the Department of Education seal. Very exciting. So you can put up your organization's logo. You could use your picture, which is what I have on my actual account, or the default is it's just going to pick for you the letter in your name and make it a little emblem that way. It gives you your personal meeting ID. This is what you can use to automatically start a meeting, and you can share that out that way. It also shows how you're signing in, what type of account you have. The little question mark will actually show you kind of what does it mean to be on basic, and will take you to where you can compare the plans. And then of course, there's always lots of points in this where it will give you the option to upgrade. It lets you know that you've got the 100 participant limit and then what time zone you're in. This is also important just in case this is not set to the one that you want. Okay. And then also your host key, that doesn't come up a ton. When I've tried to use help before, it's asked me for my host key to kind of prove that it's really my account. Now, as we keep going down, you'll see the next option is meetings. This is what you're probably going to use the most, or is this meeting area. You'll see any meetings that you already have scheduled here. And you can see you can start them, you can edit them, or you can delete them if you decided I'm not holding that event anymore. If you start it, it will automatically open up the Zoom window and you'll be live in a Zoom session. If you hit edit, it will open it up and you can change any of your meeting details. Then as we're here, you'll also see that I can schedule a meeting. So I want to show you what that looks like when you go in. You can type in your title, put in a great description, pick out your date and time. Now notice it's saying, you know, hey, you have a 40-minute limit. So you can set it for an hour, but if you have more than one person join you in this meeting, we're going to turn it off after an hour. So it's just giving you that little warning as you get started there. Again, you can change the time zone. If you set recurring, then it will let you go ahead and decide, maybe you meet with your team every Friday at 2. So you could set that to a weekly meeting, repeat it every week on Fridays. And I want to end it not until the end of the school year. So I'm going to end it at the end of May, or you could end it after you've met 4 times. Lots of different options. Notice, I mean, you can make it a daily meeting, monthly. There's also this option for no fixed time. So for instance, if I am talking about a session that I'm going to just use on demand, I might set it as no fixed time because I want to keep the same link, but the dates may be changing so much that setting that recurrence wouldn't be possible. Then you'll see I can generate a meeting ID automatically or use the personal. I like the generate automatically because it's going to keep a unique link for me. It's got a passcode on it. If you're in a free account, it's going to make you put a passcode on your meeting. And then you can choose whether you want a waiting room or not. Many of you were in the waiting room as you entered today, and then we let you in. So that's something that you can toggle on and off. The video on and off is just what will be on and off when they first enter the room, and then they can change that. And then some other things here, in particular, this mute participants upon entry is nice because then no one enters unmuted and accidentally share something they don't intend to. So then you hit save, and you'll notice it automatically is letting me start that meeting if I want to start it right then. Or I can also go down and add it to my calendar. So when you're trying to then figure out how to get this on your calendar, pick out whichever calendar you use for that particular account, click it, and it will download it into your calendar for you. And now you've got all that information. You can copy that invitation information and pop it into an email and send that out to your participants, or copy it into a calendar invite, all of that. The other thing that's nice is if you have some things that are typically set up very similarly, you can save this as a template to reuse over and over without having to retype all of that information, and it will save everything for you.
Sarah, just a quick clarifying question from the chat box. This is Tracy. We know that the free version of Zoom limits meeting times to 40 minutes. Is that, and I noticed when you had that dialog box up that there was a limit of 3. Does that mean if there's fewer, you can go longer?
Yeah, so if it's a one-to-one meeting, so there's just 2 people, you're welcome to Zoom as long as you wish. It's adding that third person that makes it a group meeting, and then the time limits apply. So 2 total people, talk to your heart's content, but once you hit 3, you're going to get cut off at 40 minutes. Now, I always say, now you can reuse that link as many times as you want. So you can always just then turn it off at 40 minutes, click the exact same link, and keep going that way over and over and over, and keep your meeting going as long as you want. And just gives you a little stretch break in between each 40-minute segment. So there are ways to definitely kind of work around it. But yes, once you get a third person in your meeting, it shuts off at 40. Good question. There is a webinars feature. This is a paid feature. Most of you will probably not be using that in your settings, but it basically lets you do more of a broadcast for large attendance. Now, recordings is another area. If you are recording the content that you are doing, so like our session today is being recorded, then at the end of your session, and I'll show you how to do it later, it will have that recording for you. Paid accounts can record to the cloud where it will record within Zoom. Local recordings is what you would be doing, and that's where you're going to record onto your computer. Free accounts can record onto your own computer. So that's kind of the options there. And then what I really want to show you are your settings. So when you go into settings, there are a lot of things that you can toggle on or toggle off depending upon what you want your Zoom to do. So there's some security things, but in particular, you can toggle on and off that waiting room as a default. You can't change, if they're grayed out like this, you'll notice those are things that you can't change on a free account. Okay, and it'll even say locked out here. This is one that I like to keep toggled on because on the free account, you have to have a password. If you toggle this on, it will embed the password in your link so people don't have to type it separately. Because I know that's what trips up a lot of people is when you're having to type in that separate password. So if you just toggle this on, it will actually embed it in the link so they can click that link and automatically be let in. Now, granted, there's always someone who will, for some reason, refuse to click that link and they'll try to just join other ways and you'll have to get them the password. But in general, it really helps with that. Now, some others that I think are particularly nice. You've already seen we can toggle on and off the video audio. Let's go down. I told you about muting participants when they join. I also like this meeting reminder. Now, when we get to end meeting basic, these are more of your features. You can actually turn off the chat right here as a setting. If you don't want your sessions to have a chat, turn it off. You can also set that by meeting, but that would be to overall change that. You can also prevent participants from saving the chat if that's something that would be helpful for you. You can also turn off private chat, particularly if you're working with students, you may not want them to be able to private message each other. So you can turn that feature off where if they want to type something in the chat, that's fine, but it will be public and you can see it. You can also auto save chat. That's something that I actually have turned on my account because with the TA that I do, there's often great information over in the chat that I might want to then share back with everybody who attended. So I have it where it auto saves it. You can also do some other things down here about always showing the meeting control toolbar, which I think is helpful. For screen sharing, you can turn it on to where only you can share or everybody can share. Again, working with adults, it's probably fine to have all participants so that people on your team can be sharing, but with students, you may not want them to always be able to share. That's also something you can toggle on and off in the meeting. The annotation. So if you have this turned off, then in your meetings, you won't be able to do that annotation that we did at the start of the meeting. So you can toggle that on and off, as well as the whiteboard that I'll show you later. The nonverbal feedback, these are the yes, no buttons that we'll look at in the next section. So turning that on and off, as well as the reactions that we'll look at. So all of those are things that you can turn on and off depending upon what works for your organization and your uses. Now, as we go down, you get to in meeting advanced. This is where you can turn on and off breakout rooms and remote support. Those are two things we'll look at, as well as if you have a need for closed captioning, you can turn that on as well. Now, as you go down, the last ones are some of the fun ones regarding turning on and off the ability to use backgrounds and filters, things like that. And you can see there's lots and lots of options in here. So I really encourage you go through and read through them. Most of them have some really good explanations. And if one of them doesn't make sense to you, I just copy and paste this whole thing into Google. And inevitably, the first search response gives me a deeper explanation of what in the world that particular feature is, as well as you can always reach out to us and we're happy to help with that. So this is just a few of the settings that you can kind of tweak and modify in here, and we'll look at some others as we go through the next chunks of Zoom. So I'm going to switch over. One of the things that you'll find is that if you're live in Zoom, you cannot share Zoom, of course. So what I've done instead to still be able to give you that live walkthrough experience is actually recorded some snippets about how to use some of the other features of Zoom. So as we get started here, I'm going to show you how to use the Zoom app. This is if you've taken Zoom, downloaded it onto your computer, and are using it from there. So I mentioned that earlier as an option. You can be using Zoom in your browser or in the downloaded app. My suggestion to you is if you plan to use Zoom regularly, go ahead and download it onto your computer. I know that for many of you, that may mean getting permission from IT to do that, but I promise it's honestly going to be worth the hassle of involving IT and letting you download it, because it just makes everything just a little bit easier and smoother in your experience. So definitely my suggestion that if you're allowed to download it on your computer, I think you'll find that a little bit easier to deal with. But I'll show you now how to do all of these things if you do download the app.
So as I mentioned, I like to use the actual Zoom app on my computer. I just think it makes things a little bit easier. And so if I want to quickly schedule a meeting from the Zoom app, it looks just like this. I'll go over to schedule. I'll be able to put in my meeting name, select the date of my meeting and time. Be careful about AM and PM, because you'll notice if I go ahead and put in, say, 11:30, it thinks PM, so you want to change it before you have an all-night meeting. It will give you a note that if you're on the free account, you can only have that 40-minute time limit there. So it's going to ask you to change it, because right now I have a 12-hour meeting. So we'll change that. You'll notice you can also pick whether you want to use your generated automatically meeting ID or whether you want to use a personal meeting ID. I tend to like the generate automatically because it makes sure I'm not overlapping with people coming into meetings that I didn't intend for them to be in. You're going to automatically be assigned a passcode for that particular meeting. You can also enable or disable the waiting room. These are your options for having the video on or off as people enter. They can, of course, then toggle that themselves. I like to leave it off so nobody's surprised that they're on camera. And then you'll select what calendar you want this invitation to go to. So if you typically use a Google Calendar, Outlook, I'm going to use iCal because of what I'm using for this particular account. So I'll hit save. It'll automatically open up my calendar here. I can then select whatever calendar I would like it on and hit OK. It's going to automatically bring up this meeting for me here. And that's when I could go ahead and input my invitees and send out those calendar invites. So that's just how you're going to be able to quickly schedule a meeting from this Zoom link. All right, let's look at the other options available to us here in the Zoom app. You'll see that I can also go ahead and just immediately start a meeting. So maybe you want to have a quick meeting with one of your colleagues. You can just quickly hit this button and that will launch it. I do want to point out though, there's a little caret here. So you can see I have toggled off start with video because I want to be able to then decide whether I'm sharing my video once the meeting starts. But if you toggle that on, it's going to automatically show your video. And if you have a new Zoom account, that is an auto feature. So if you don't want to always be on camera, you want that option, just toggle that off. And then you can also again pick to use your personal meeting. So if I click that, you'll notice a Zoom window automatically just opens right up. And then I can go about starting my meeting and inviting folks. So I'll go ahead and end that, show you the other features here. You can also join a meeting. So if you have an ID for another meeting, you can pop that in and join straight from there. And then finally, I can go ahead and share my screen. So when I click that, you can see it just thinks that I want to go ahead and record at that point. So it's going to ask my permission, at which point it would then allow me to begin doing that. Then you'll also see over here on the right side, any meetings that you already have scheduled are going to always appear here and give you the opportunity to start them straight from your app. So I think that's a nice feature of using the app as well. You also have the chat function. So if you've been chatting with someone or you have other colleagues on Zoom, you can use this basically as an instant messenger. Here's another spot where you can go ahead and see what meetings you have upcoming scheduled and then start a meeting with my personal meeting ID if I'd like. If I had any recorded meetings, I'd be able to see that here. So just really nice to hear how you can get all of your different things right in the app without having to go into the website. And then contacts. So as you begin using Zoom, you can add contacts to that. And anybody that you put into contacts, you can then try to use with chat or invite to meetings. So those people that maybe you communicate with a bit more frequently. Then the final thing is you've got your little icon up here for yourself. You'll see that that takes you to your account. You can see that I am on a basic account. If you hover over it, it'll let you learn more about what it means to be on a basic account. This is also where you can add things like a little note that will show up when people look for you. If you hit settings, it will take you back to the actual Zoom website into your account where you can change any of those settings that we looked at before. You can set how you show up, so you can mark yourself as available, away, or do not disturb. You can change the different things on your profile. Those are also things that you can do through the Zoom website. Another one that I think is important is I like to every few weeks check for updates. Zoom is always coming up with updates, so you can do that straight in the app here. And then you can also sign out or switch accounts if maybe you're switching between your personal and professional accounts. So lots of things available to you right there. One other little feature is that there is this little settings button right here. So if I hit that, it's actually going to take me to many of the settings that are available if you go into Zoom and look at those settings like we did before. So you'll see lots of different things here. Some of the ones that I particularly like are always showing my meeting controls. Otherwise, sometimes I have to kind of wiggle my mouse to make those show up. I really prefer to be able to see them all the time, just easier for me. Also, I like this ask me to confirm when I'm leaving a meeting. Just helps you to not accidentally exit out of a meeting that you don't mean to exit out of. And then the last one that I particularly like is this reminder. And that's just where I can actually set a reminder that will pop up on my screen and remind me that I do have a meeting coming up and I should start that or join that. Now you'll notice there's a view more settings down here. If you click that, that will take you to the Zoom website and you'll be able to do more things there. You can set up your video and audio settings there. You can go ahead and start doing some recordings. You can set your chat functions. If you want to do a virtual background or filters, all of those things you can normally access during the meeting, you can actually access also outside of the meeting and set those things up in advance. Notice that you can also go ahead and edit anything on your profile, get some statistics on your usage, and set up, if you're a keyboard shortcut person, I can never remember keyboard shortcuts for the most part myself, but I know a lot of people really enjoy them, and if so, you can set them up here and also see what the pre-existing ones are. So just some nice features that you can get straight from within that app and that I think really make it worthwhile to go ahead and download on your computer.
All right, so this just gives you a little bit of an overview of the app. And I know we had a couple of questions. One of them I'm going to save because we're going to get to something like that momentarily, but one I wanted to go ahead and address, which was, that these platforms are public and they should use a platform that they own. So it's really going to depend on what your organization would like for you to do and what type of kind of security settings they require. There are going to be some organizations that are going to stipulate exactly what type of platform you need to use. So it is important to kind of discuss that with your IT. But in general, and we're going to talk about some of the security settings available, but in general, these platforms have really beefed up their security. And, some of the things that we heard about early on in kind of the shutdown time when people were switching to distance learning really are not as much of an issue anymore. They've really done a great job of putting things in place that keep people that shouldn't be in your meeting out of your meeting and people from being able to do things they shouldn't within your meetings. So a lot of those security things have really been clamped down. That's also part of why there's the meeting passwords that are required, lots of things like that. But definitely, discuss that with your IT, see what your organization's preferences are and requirements are. But in general, most people are not going to have security issues with these two options. All right, so we're going to get to the other question in just a minute because we're going to actually talk about it a little here, and this may actually cover it. I know some of you said you might be having some audio dilemmas, so I'm going to just switch my audio settings right quick in hopes that that will make it a little bit louder for you as we watch the videos. So feel free to let me know in the chat if this is a little louder this next time.
So as I mentioned,
as we talk about some basics. Now this will be once you're actually in your meeting live, and we're going to talk about the basics here.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and look at some of the basic features available in Zoom. Really, if you had just opened up your account and hadn't changed anything, these would be available to you. So you'll see the first two options here are that you can mute and unmute yourself. So this is your own audio. This might be great if you need to mute yourself because you're trying to listen to someone else and you want to cut down on background noise or the dog is going crazy. There's also a little caret here in case you need to change. Maybe your audio is not quite working, so you can try some of these other microphones or speakers to get that to work, or even test it out in advance. Same thing with your video, so you can toggle that on or off just with that setting there. There is a little caret here though, and I wanted to make sure and show you this because you see there's a choose virtual background, a choose video filter or video settings. I'm going to go ahead and go into video settings because it includes these two as well. So when I do that, you'll notice I'm already showing up so I can get a preview, but don't worry, nobody in your meeting can see you. So you're still top secret. But as we look down, you'll see it's all of those things that we saw in the app, but now I'm able to access them live in my meeting. So you'll see one of the things that is very popular is this touch up my appearance. So here's me untouched up or touched up, and you can change the level of filter. It's not going to radically alter what you look like, but it does put just a pleasant filter over. You can also adjust for low light. If you have low light where you are, it'll just brighten things up a bit. And you can kind of change that up. There are a lot of other video settings down here, including increasing the number available in your gallery view, which we'll show in just one moment. So some good stuff there. Then if you go down to this backgrounds and filters, so you'll see right now it's showing that I have this background going on. So I can switch it to none and you can see there's no background whatsoever, or I can use one of the ones that are preset in Zoom. But if I do that, know that it's going to depend on your computer whether this works. So the computer I had a year ago couldn't handle doing this without a green screen. It wasn't able to do that. Now, if you have a green screen, you can always indicate, hey, I have a green screen. You'll notice now my green screen that's far behind me is the only part of the background. So you just want to experiment it with it in advance so that you have that all set up before you're in a live meeting. You can also change that. So you can add any image or video you'd like from the internet, a picture you took, whatever you like. You can also do the filters. There are fun ones like adding the mask that we all wear, or getting yourself some cool sunglasses, or even just some colorations that you can add for fun. If you go to studio effects, you can even add facial hair, eyebrows, all kinds of things, and change your lipstick color. I'm going to take off my filter so you can see that it will actually put lipstick on for you. So all kinds of different things that you can add in here actually live in your meeting. So I'm going to close all that and head back in. Now the other setting you'll see here, I've got the 3 versions of me all in my meeting. So up in this top right corner, I've got this view button, and I can make it speaker view where just the person who is currently speaking will be highlighted here, or I can switch to gallery view where I can see everyone. We affectionately refer to this as the Brady Bunch view. You can see, depending upon what you've set up in your settings, up to 49 different people. I don't particularly like to make it where I can see that many at one time because it tends to get so small I can't truly see. But it's up to you what you like. If you get more than fills one screen, you'll see in this area here a little arrow where you can toggle through the pages of all your participants and look at them. You can also toggle into full screen here, which will just take up your full monitor area, which is great if you have a lot of things open or you're going to be doing a lot of documents sharing and things like that. So just some options there. All right, now as we continue across this bottom menu, you'll see the next option is security. If we click on that, you see I can lock the meeting. This is not something that I typically do because that means no one can get in after that. So I don't typically go that far. I can turn on my waiting room if that wasn't turned on before. A lot of those things that you could have set up in your features. As far as who can share their screen or chat, can you unmute yourself? That's definitely one that I often turn off, is the ability for people to unmute themselves. If I have a large group, then I may have a lot of folks who accidentally unmute themselves and it creates a lot of background noise. So I'll leave that toggled off, and then I'll go back in when I'm ready to have a group discussion, toggle it back on, and then people will be able to unmute themselves and chat. Also in security, you can see you can remove a participant or suspend their activities. This is how you would report any type of abusive or inappropriate activity. One note on remove: if you remove someone, then they are not able to rejoin that same meeting. So if you think you're doing them a favor and removing them so that they can rejoin and maybe fix their internet or whatever, they're going to have to take themselves out, because if you as the host remove them, they're not going to be able to rejoin that same meeting. So just an important little tidbit there. Now, as we go over to participants, you'll see when I hit participants, it's going to open up along the right side, or if I'm in full screen, it will make a pop-up window, and I can see everybody who is participating. You'll note that I can see who has a microphone and who has a camera. Because those last two participants don't even show a microphone, that means they have not connected their audio. So that's an indicator to me they may need some technical help, or they're just choosing to tune in and listen in without any audio. You'll also see here an invite button. I can click this. If I have people in my contacts, I can invite them directly that way, or I can just copy that link or the full invitation and pop it in my own email. This is also where your meeting passcode is. I often find myself trying to remember, what's my meeting passcode? Where is it? Well, it's right there for you. And you can even connect this with your email and directly send out emails that way when you're live in a meeting and doing kind of an on-demand style. All right, now next, come back over here. We've got the mute all. Again, another great feature when we may have a group that we need to just close that conversation and move to the next thing. You can hit that, it will mute everybody all at once. Then you have the more, where you can ask people to unmute, mute them all as they enter, play sounds when they join and leave. All of those basically same things that we saw under security are actually available here in participants under more as well. So a couple of places you can access that. Okay, the next thing as we go over is you'll see the chat. If I open that, that's the chat box. So I can type in my message, and when I hit enter, it magically appears. A couple of notes on the chat box though. Be aware that if I type in this message prior to people being in the room, they're not going to be able to see it. People can only see the messages that have appeared since they've joined the meeting. So that can sometimes be problematic if you share a link before everybody joins the meeting, and then you're saying, oh, grab the link. They probably can't see it, but you can then copy and paste that message again, so you don't have to type it again. So I can copy it, paste it, and do it again. You'll also notice it says everyone. So everyone in meeting, if you have a waiting room enabled and there's people in your waiting room, you can also send a message to them saying, we're going to get started in 1 minute, or be thinking about this discussion topic before we get going. But since I have everybody in my meeting, I have that as an option as well, or I can private message someone. And you'll notice the nice thing is it says direct message, and I'll be able to then send a private message just to that particular person. You can see I can also pop a file in. So if I want to pop a file in, I can do it from any of these various services, or more likely, and what I find to be easiest because I'm not having to use additional internet, is to just add a file from my computer. And once you do that, you'll see everything pops up from your computer to select from. You also have these 3 dots. If you hit save chat, that is going to save all of the chat information into a text file at the time that you hit save chat. Remember, in the settings, you could also set that as a default if you wanted to always do that for you. And then because I am leading the meeting, I can also set whether participants can chat with no one, the host only, everyone publicly, or everyone publicly and directly, which is what I tend to use unless I need to try to control that a bit more. So lots of great options there in the chat. You'll see I can also share my screen. When I hit share my screen, it's going to bring up a number of different options where I can share my desktop, a particular application I have open. I can do my phone, different things like that, internet window. You can do a whiteboard, which is what I show you now. So when I do a whiteboard this way, you'll see that we've got a whole whiteboard here where you're going to be able to then use any of those annotation tools and do any of that with your participants. So a nice little feature there. Now I can stop sharing that whiteboard, which will bring me back to my meeting here. Once I'm in my meeting and back to share screen, I can look at my other options. You can go advanced and select a portion of the screen, slides as a virtual background, do all kinds of different things to get a little bit fancier, or even particular files again. I don't use this as much. Again, sometimes it can be a little wonky with internet availability. I tend to stick with these basic options. The one caveat I'll give you on the sharing is to really think about if you're doing a desktop share, that means that folks will be able to see your entire desktop. If they can see your entire desktop, then anything that you might have popping up, if you have your email account open and those email notifications pop up or text messages pop up, they're going to be able to see that because you're sharing your desktop. So just think through whether you want to do just a share of a particular document or a particular application, or whether you would like to do a share of your entire desktop. And then finally, your record options are here. Basically, you just hit record, it will start recording, and you can pause and or stop it. And once you do that, you'll get a nice little message letting you know that that recording will be completed when your meeting is over. All right, the final piece here as we're looking at this is the reactions button. So if I hit the reactions button, you'll notice that you can see a number of emojis available to me that if I hit, maybe I love something that someone is sharing, I can hit that. That will show up right there on my screen. And it's a great way to get some quick feedback from a group and just to be able to participate. So you'll see it stays up there for a few seconds after you put it, and then it will disappear. And then the final piece is this end button. If you are the host of a meeting, it will say end. When you click that, that will stop that meeting for everyone. If it says leave, you are not the host of that meeting, and it's just going to be you leaving the meeting. Now you'll notice if I hit end, I typically will have the option, because I'm the host, it wants to warn me that if I leave, it means the meeting ends for everybody, or I can choose to leave the meeting and allow those left on the meeting to continue meeting without me. Okay, so I'm just going to leave my meeting, and now I have to decide who's going to be the host while I'm not on. So I'll pick this other version of me is now the host, and then I can leave, and you'll see that it already has converted my recording. So I now have the audio versions, the M3 and the MP4. So you'll see that one was quick because the recording was super quick. It'll take longer for longer sessions to record like that, but you'll see it's an automatic process, which is really, really nice.
All right, so this is the perfect time to talk about the question that we skipped and held on, which was how do you share a video? So you're in a Zoom meeting and you want to share a video. So a couple of ways that you can do this. So the first way is exactly as I've done it, to be able to share a video with you today. You can pop a video into a PowerPoint and play it as you're sharing that PowerPoint. The other option is that you can have that video just pulled up in whatever your video player is on your computer, QuickTime or whatever you might use, and play that video and share that. The big caveat is, and this, it trips me up all the time because I have a tendency to open about 92 things on my computer at the same time. And so I will have all these things minimized. I'm like, why won't it share? It's because it's minimized. In order to be able to share in Zoom, you have to have it literally open on your desktop. Okay. So if you're ever trying to share something, you're like, why? Why will it not see what I see? Why can I not share? Really good odds that it's because it's not actually open on your computer screen. You've got it minimized and it can't share something that's minimized. So whatever it is you want to share, be it a PowerPoint, a document, a video, whatever it is, just pull it up on your actual screen. And then when it goes into that share window that we looked at, you can select it, and you can select just it or your entire desktop to be able to share it, or pop your video into a PowerPoint like this and play it that way. And then the last way that you could do that is if it's a video that's online, maybe you're trying to share a YouTube video, then you just, again, have your internet pulled up on your computer screen. And when you go to share, one of your options will be your internet browser, and you could play that video directly in your browser, whatever that might be. So lots of different ways there that you can go ahead and share that video. I hope that answered your question. If not, pop it over in the box again. I do see two other questions though. What does pin video mean? I see my video and then there are 3 dots. And what does it mean to hide self view? So a couple of things. So like right now, when you're looking at the different options, you can see yourself, particularly if you're on camera. You see yourself, which is kind of handy when you're presenting, just to make sure you don't have like a hair sticking out the side of your head or anything crazy in the background. But if you don't want to see yourself, for some people when they're presenting, that can be really disconcerting to actually be able to see yourself. If you hide self view, you don't see yourself anymore. The other one, the pin video, that would be particularly helpful if you want to make sure that someone is big on the screen. So you can pin them, and that will actually make them, if people are in speaker view, they'll be able to see them right where they're looking. Otherwise, the default setting is that whoever's talking would show up in speaker view. But if you pen them, it will stay on them. That can kind of be handy, like if you're doing some sort of discussion where you want your speaker showing, but people might be asking questions from the audience, but you don't want the camera going to all those different people. You could pin that person and they'll stay right there. And then I see, how do I have the message set from me to my name? I don't know if I'm fully getting your question. I'm guessing, do you mean your name on your actual screen? Daphne, if you could give me a little more clarification, we will figure out how to have the message set from me to my name. And while you are putting a little more detail over in the chat box, I'm going to go ahead and hop into our last explanation, which are, I like to call, fancy features in Zoom.
All right, now if you've enabled some of those other more advanced features that I showed you in the settings, then your menu at the bottom is going to look a little bit different, primarily because under participants, you're going to have some additional options. You're going to have breakout rooms, and you might have support. So as we go under participants, if I open up my participant panel here, you'll notice it basically looks the same, but I now have these buttons down here at the bottom. So people can be giving me feedback, yes or no, voting on a question. You can even do up to 4 responses because it will also tally your thumbs up and thumbs down options. You can ask to go slower or faster and give a little thumbs up or say they need to go on a break. But if people are voting, notice up at the top, watch right out beside where I am up there. And as I change my answer, you can see that there. And it tallies it at the top so that you can then be looking and get your quick feedback. Now, once you've gotten that feedback, you just hit this clear all, it disappears, and you can go to your next question. So just a nice little additional feature that you can turn on and be able to use for feedbacks and reactions. Now, as I go back to my bottom menu, I'm going to head to breakout rooms. Now, breakout rooms are a great way to be able to break up your participants and do different discussion topics, or maybe you have students who are working on different group projects. Lots of things you can do with that. When you open up breakout rooms, it's going to ask you how many breakout rooms you want. So I'd like 3. You can assign automatically, which Zoom will then take your participants and evenly split them amongst the groups that you've set up. You can assign manually, and I'll show you what that looks like. If I do that, it gives me my 3 rooms. Notice that I can rename it. That be my blue group. You change all of those. You can even delete it. If I decide I only need really 2 rooms, I can delete one. So it's very flexible within the meeting. And then when I'm ready to assign, I'll hit assign. It shows me all the people in my meeting, and I can then select whoever I'd like into the various groups. Once I've hit, notice it says everyone's been invited to join their breakout room. Now, even if they do not click the invite to say, okay, join my room, they're going to be moved into that room within about 60 seconds. And so they'll be kind of popped out into that particular room. Now, if I want to send a broadcast message to everyone saying, 5 more minutes, kind of a warning to wrap up, I can broadcast that out. That will send it out to all my rooms. If I close all my rooms, then you'll see everyone's been sent a message saying they've got 60 seconds to leave their room and come back to the main one. They can click that button and be automatically taken back in, or in 60 seconds, just like they were magically placed in their room, they'll be magically moved back out of that room. Now, the other option, let's recreate. I'm going to do this differently, and I'm going to let participants choose their room. Now, this is a relatively new feature on Zoom, but I really like it. So I'm going to recreate my rooms having 3 where people can pick. And let's say I'm doing homework help. And so I want a room where people can get help with math, science, or reading. So I set up my rooms like this. And you'll notice I can still go ahead and assign. So maybe I have a couple of people I know need to go in a particular room. But in general, if I say open all rooms, then everyone just got a message where they can pick which room they want to go into. So if they know what they need help with, they can just select from one of these and be able to actually pop right in there. And then same thing, I'm going to go ahead and close those. A couple of things to note about the breakout rooms are just that if you have anyone who's joining your Zoom solely by phone, so not if they're using phone audio, but they've actually joined on a computer or some sort of device, but if they've just only connected to the audio via phone, they cannot move into a breakout room. The way I work around that is if I really want 3 breakout rooms, I might just set up 2. And then for this third one, I'll have that one meet in my main room, and anybody on phone gets to partake in that room. So that's one little workaround there. So the last feature down here at the bottom that would be a little bit different is this support feature. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time really going into that because it really is more of an advanced feature, but could be beneficial. So with that, you'd be able to actually take control of a colleague or a student's computer and make changes to their settings, or click in their document, whatever you needed to do to be able to provide that tech support. So it can be very handy, but definitely is more of an advanced feature. They've got some great tutorials on it on the Zoom website, or I'm happy to answer questions about it at the end or offline, but I don't want to take too much time with it right now.
All right, so that's what I like to consider the fancy features, those additional things. Remember that you can toggle on and off in your settings. So those are things that you may not decide you need to use. So if you toggle them off, those won't even be at the bottom of your meeting controls. But if you find benefit of them, if they would be helpful for you, just toggle them on in your settings and you can use them that way. I think we've addressed all of our questions on Zoom in the chat box thus far, but feel free to keep popping them in, keep thinking about any questions you might have, and I'm going to hop over and let Olani take it away with Google Meet.
Awesome. Boy, that was a Zoom mic drop totally, with all of those amazing features. Why would you want anything else? Well, if you live in the Google universe, Google Meet is a really great option for you, particularly Google Free. So I'm going to go through 3 separate things. One is I'm going to do how to set up a meeting in Google Meet, what I call free version, which is first you have a Google free Gmail and you are utilizing Google Meet free. And then the second sort of run through will be if you have a Google Enterprise, Google Education, nonprofit, or small business. I'm going to show you how you can access Google Meet and set up a meeting there and the different features that are provided there. And third, if you're an educational organization, or actually you could be a business as well, and you're using Google Classroom, I'm going to show you how you can set up a Google Meet via Google Classroom. So let's get started. I'm here at my free Gmail account, and I am going to log on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the waffle up here in the top right-hand corner, click on there, and find Google Meets right here. Can you folks all see this? Yes. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to click on Google Meet. This is the basic screen that you'll always be forwarded to. Now in this screen, I can set up a new meeting, and there's 3 ways to set up a new meeting. I'll click here. The first one, create a meeting for later. Basically what this is to be able to, provides you a link that you can copy and paste and put into an email where you want to invite people in the future, or put into a calendar invite. So that's the first way. The second way is I actually want to schedule in Google Calendar. So what this does is this connects me to my Google Calendar. And so I want to create a meeting. So we're going to do a demo meeting. I'm going to select the date and the time. I can select my time zone. Oh, it looks like it's adding. Okay. And then right here under guests, what I can do is I can start to add my guests. And if I have them on my contacts, they'll they'll pop up on their own. 1 second. Yeah, okay. They'll pop up on their own. And then I can also, I have how many minutes the meeting is going to be. I can put the location. What you see right here, and for some reason the wheel is turning, is where I would click Google Meets if I want this to be a Google meeting. I can also attach documents. And so right now I'm going to attach a document that I'd like to share during my meeting, and select. I can also put in some additional information if I want to make sure people are prepped and ready to go for my meeting. I can add that here, and then click and save. And it shows up right here in my calendar. I'm going to click on this for a second. So as my invitees are RSVPing, I will be able to see that in my calendar as well. Okay, so that's the second way to set up a Google Meet. Let me get out of here. The third way is to start an instant meeting. And I picked this because now I'm going to sort of take you through a tour of what a meeting looks like from Google. Okay. So I want to join now. Oh, look, you see my fancy background. So here again, I have an opportunity because I just want to sort of join in and create a meeting, and I want to invite Sarah to join me right now. And I can add her email here at the bottom, or I can copy and paste this and add it to an email. I'm going to get out of there. So let me just orient you to Google Meet, again, free version. We come down here to the bottom right-hand corner and you see our 3 dots. We click on here. This is where for Google Meet free, this is where most of our Meet is, and our options and our features. So sometimes people, if you're in a classroom or in a large meeting, sometimes you can have a TV that's set up and connected to it. You can actually cast it to a larger screen. This right here is our whiteboard. Now, before you used to have to upload a Jamboard extension, but now this whiteboard is actually built into the session. If I click on that, I can either start a new whiteboard, or maybe I have done I created a document that I wanted to be a whiteboard in my Google Drive, and that's where I can access that. I can start, there we go. And you can see where I can start. And it doesn't have, again, a lot of the fancy, but we can get some area in which we can sort of work collaboratively. Create a sticky note. And be able to create some collaboration. I'm going to close that. Go back down to our 3 dots. Then we have the change layout, and this is really what Sarah had talked to about. How do you want to see your screen? So it has the same sort of functions, the auto, which if you set it on auto, it will adjust to your screen. The tiled is sort of like your Brady Bunch tile. On spotlight is where you want to spotlight the speaker. And then sidebar is where it puts the participants on the side of your screen. For both auto and tiled, Google sort of defaults to 16 view. You can move this scale up or down depending on your preference. Like Sarah had talked about, as you're the presenter, sometimes having too many people on can be a little disconcerting. And so really, it depends on what type of meeting that you're holding and what the functions are. Okay. Get out of that, go back to our three dot. And then we can go to change background. So you see, I have my background up. I could get rid of it. And, oh, wait, sorry. I could get rid of it here and you can just see into my office. Or I could pick, so for example, this is really good for students to sort of change things up. So if I was teaching something about moon phases and Hawaiian language, then I might want to create this theme for students to just sort of cue them into the content that's being taken. So you can actually, they have sort of Google backgrounds on that's my Hilo city. I'm in Hawaii. So that's not Google, but here's a regular sort of Google backgrounds that you could use. I guess, again, to create some diversity. Oh, sorry. That's why you have to close everything. And so to create some diversity, but I'm going to stick with my moon phase because that's what I'm really focusing on right now. So get out of background. Okay, the other thing we have is turn on captions. And so if I turn on captions, what is provided is Google has a voice recognition. And so you're able to see captions at the bottom of your screen. Um, that initially was really used for people who may have difficulty hearing, but also if you have a lot of noise in the background with dogs, or maybe you're just in a noisy office, it helps to provide a different way of viewing the presentation. I'm going to turn that off. Okay. Again, Google has report any problems and report abuse. So report problems is really about the system, and the abuse is if you might have somebody joining in or somebody inappropriate. That's sort of where you want to report them. Troubleshooting, so you can get help and troubleshooting in the Google Meeting. And then settings. This is where you are seeing your audio and video, where you can make those adjustments for both your audio and video. Okay, let's move back. So we have this present now button here down next to our three dots. This allows me to sort of present the screen. And so because a lot of times people who use Google Meets are in the Google universe, there is an additional share your tabs. And so I may have tabs at the top where I can select a particular tab and it shows up here, and I can select that tab and it'll share that tab. And a lot of times that's really helpful when you might be creating documents or PowerPoints in your Google Drive, or even if you want to, like Sarah was talking about earlier, it's a way that you can tee up maybe a YouTube video, because YouTube is part of the Googleverse. You can tee that up in a tab and be able to click on that and go directly to your video. We saw the turn on and turn off captions, that's here as well. This down here at the bottom right underneath my face is the camera, so I can turn off and turn on my camera view. This this red phone right here is where I would hang up. I would end the call. I'm not going to do that right now because it might get me into trouble. And so this mic right here is also where I can mute and unmute. If we go here to meeting details, this provides me another opportunity to invite more people. So again, I can copy this and send it in an email or even in an email. But also I can see here at the attachments, I can see the attachment that I included in my Google Calendar invite. And so that makes it readily available to me and easy to access while I'm in the meeting. Okay. Now, the final sort of review in this free Google Meets is to look up here at the top right-hand corner where my cursor is, and I can see both the chat and I can also see who is actually in the meeting. Okay, so that is sort of the basics of Google Free, utilizing my free Google Gmail. Now, if I have a education account or I have a business account, there is another version that I can use. So we're going to get into that. I'm going to shut this off. Okay. Now, what I do is I make sure that right here, my J is making sure that I'm in the correct Google account. And so I know that I'm actually in my business Google account. So again, I come right here to the waffle, as Google calls it, come to meet. And this is another cue that you know that you're in the right place. And so this screen obviously looks really different from the free Gmail, free Google account. So I can come here to start or join a meeting. Again, I can join now. Additionally, I am able to invite people who may be phoning in that was not provided in the free Google Meets, free Gmail Meets. I can also start presenting from the get-go. But for right now, I'm just going to join now so I can show you the different features that are in your enterprise Google. This for enterprise, you can create meetings the same way as the free. So I can go straight into my calendar and create a meeting, or I can copy this and send this in an email or in a calendar invite, or I can just straight add people right into the meeting to participate. But let's look at some of the features that are different here. Now, our three dots, we go back down to our three dots. These all are the same, so except for the phone. So this phone access allows people who were invited to be able to use their phone to call in, and they actually have to set up their include their phone number in order to be able to access that. So that's just one of the things that is different. The present now is the same. So again, I can do from my tab, my window, or from my entire screen. The captions is the same. The difference is I can do a raise hand. And so if you are in my Google Meets and you're a participant, you can click on this raise hand, and that cues me in as a host that you might have a question, particularly if I have everyone on mute. And so that I can stop my presentation and call on someone to answer their question. And then I can either, or if you're going along and the presenter answers the question, the participant can actually lower their hand. Or if I'm the presenter and I answer the question, I can go ahead and lower their hand as well. These bottom features remain the same, as well as the meeting details, all remain the same. Okay, so here is where Google gets its fancy on. Um, this is, let's taking some time. Okay, here's where we have our fancy for Google. Um, these are three features that are not provided in the free Gmail, free Google. And so first of all is the breakout rooms. So what's different from in both the breakout room and the polling is that unlike Zoom, you actually have to have the meeting up and running and the invitees invited in order to create the breakout rooms and the poll. So there's not much. So in order to prepare for the meeting and get your polls up, you really have to take time before the meeting actually begins to write it on your paper, because once you start the meeting, that's when you'll be able to input the questions and the answers or create the breakout room. So here we are in breakout rooms. And so we click here on this little pen, and it allows us to set up our break rooms. And so the main call is actually an area that can be considered a breakout room. And then you can create 2 or more breakout rooms by just clicking here. Um, and the way you assign participants is you'll have a list of invitees, and you'll actually be able to drag and drop them into the appropriate uh, breakout rooms. You have a timer here that you can set. And so what'll happen is you set it for 30 minutes. You can, the breakout room will automatically kick participants out and back into the main room. One of the benefits of keeping participants in the main room is that if anybody comes in later, you will have that main room available, and you can address them and even maybe move them into other break rooms later in the meeting. Then there's this shuffle button, and this is it's connected and related to assignment of breakout rooms. So let's say, for example, you've assigned people, put them in breakout rooms, and you're going to go into a brainstorming session. And then you bring those people out of the brainstorming session, and they share what went on in their session. And you want to go into another breakout room, but you want to sort of mix people up. And it doesn't really matter to you how they're mixed up. This is why you would use shuffle. And so what shuffle does is it just shuffles your assignees into different breakout rooms, sort of randomly, and just that allows you maybe less thinking and moving people around. And then you would go down after you've created your breakout rooms. You would go down here and open rooms. Now, when you open rooms as the moderator, you are able to join. And so that's a really great, particularly when you have students, or even if you're doing an adult PD, to click on join to just sort of check in, making sure they're on process, see if there's any questions that you need to answer. You can also, once you've started the breakout room, you can edit it, and you can also close the breakout rooms. Okay. Then we have the polls. So again, polls, you have to wait till in Google, you have to wait till you start the meeting as the facilitator to be able to create your polls. So we want to start a poll. So I am in a Hawaiian language, environmental literacy class. So, and I'm all about the mahina right now, the moon. So I want to ask students, what moon phase are we in? And I can provide this up. This is a really good, when you're working with students, this is a really good tool to use as a do now when they first come into class, to just maybe test their knowledge of what you taught the previous days. So I can create, I can save this poll, and then I can create additional polls if I maybe want to do with students a do now when they first enter, and then I want to do a mid maybe I've done some instruction, I want to do another poll, so I can create another poll and then a sort of closeout poll and exit ticket at the end of instruction. I can also edit, and then I can choose to launch that poll. And then there's this Q&A feature. So this allows both the facilitator as well as the student to pose questions. Now, what can happen is if you are in a chat, and a student poses a question, it will pull the questions over, or they can go ahead and ask a question here. So let's see, I want to ask a question. And I want to post that question. Now, this is where one of the areas that Google has tried to match Zoom a little bit is I can actually, if a lot of people think that this is a really good question and they want that answer, and that's their question as well, they can click on this hand. And as the presenter and even participants, I'll be able to see, maybe 5 people really have this question. And it's really something important. I'd be able to see that. Once I've answered it, I can come here to the check, click on there, and I know that it's been answered. Okay. All right. So those are sort of the Google Fancy version. You can also see again here, just like the free version, the chat, as well as your participants. Now, I've been rambling for a little bit, so I just want to check in if there was any questions. I'm going to...
So far, I think we are good on questions.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to sort of share, again, I had said Zoom, like why Google Meets? Well, particularly if you're in the Google universe and you are using maybe Google Classrooms, it automatically, if you have a Google Classroom and you are in a Google Education or Enterprise, it'll automatically create this Meet link for you, which is really good for students, so they don't have to, meander all around and look for that link. It'll always be there for you. Now, you can also attach a Zoom link to your Google Classroom. But maybe you want to sort of keep this as well for maybe sort of smaller group conversations or more focused discussions. So you can use the 2 platforms interchangeably. Alrighty, so that is that is pretty much the Google Meet universe. And I just want to sort of, if you used to use Google Hangout, Google Meet is they changed Google Hangout to Google Meets. I forgot to say that at the beginning. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now.
And we'll hop over back into our general. I know we're just moments away from wrap up, but I do want to give you some time that if you have questions, we're able to do that and give you a couple of think abouts as we kind of wrap up. I know many of you may have platforms that you're required to use, like we talked about before, whether it's because of security or your particular organization, you may have a required platform that you have to use for all of your purposes. And then for others, you may have that option to use whatever platform you like or to hop between platforms. But Alani is going to talk to us about just a few considerations as you're determining what to use.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure if you have children who are in school and online, you're seeing all the platforms and apps and programs being used by your schools. And so really this is to think about our audience, one of the considerations, and to think about when you're working with families, what other systems and tools they may be using to not sort of add on additional, because we know a lot of our parents have had to become not only teachers, but IT experts. And so we really want to sort of consider their environment and what's going on with them. Additionally, I think when we're working in Indian country, we really want to think about the cultural values and norms and how these systems can best support and build up and be used as a tool to highlight those values and expectations. For example, it's really good to have that the system be able to be mobile, because maybe I want to do something outdoors and I want to get into the environment, because for Native people, environment is really important. And I want to be able to have that feature out there and allow me to teach outside or with cultural practitioners. The other piece is to look at, like, again, around cultural norms is, sometimes calling students out, I don't know about in your culture, but in my culture, can create a lot of shame. And so utilizing chat or private chat um, features is a great way to address the student, but maybe not in front of everybody. And then the third is to really look at what your community or your organizational culture practices are. So for example, if transparency is really important to your organization, having all of these tools and recordings and the chat up there and people being able to collaborate is definitely something, features that you want to look for as far as like engaging your community in order to create more transparency. And so those are some of the three things that we would like to consider. Right now, we were going to ask if there were other things that you folks, and I think in looking at some of the chat, definitely security came up as an aspect of to be considered. As well as being able to access in rural areas the different platforms.
Definitely. So as we wrap up, yes, if you have any other questions or if your question somehow got skipped, pop those in the chat box. We're willing to stay on after we wrap and answer your questions. So we'll stay on with you past our wrap up. But for those who need to hop, I do want to just launch our final poll here. This is how we wrap up all of our different activities and webinars, is with this quick poll. Was this beneficial for you? We hope it was, but it may not have met your needs. So let us know. If you could just hopefully have this in the middle of your screen and pop that answer in fast finger style, as well as you can see over in the chat box, we've popped in our feedback survey. If you have not tried our feedback survey before, don't fret. It's not one of those long, difficult ones. 2-3 minutes top, super quick, super easy, and super helpful for all of us on the TA team and at OIE to be able to really make sure that we're providing the things that are of great use to you. While you're doing the poll, I'm going to hop over and just remind you about some other things that we have upcoming. So if you are enjoying this type of session, this is just the first in our distance learning series. So we will be back after the first of the year. And on January 12th, we're going to talk about surveys and forms. So we're going to talk about free programs that are available to you to create really dynamic surveys and forms that you can use with your students, your families, your community, your team. And then on January 26th, we're going to talk about communicating with families and students. We'll talk about some best practices, as well as, again, some tools that are available to you for free that you can use to hopefully increase that communication. And then this week, even, we do have one more session before you head out into your holiday break. On Thursday, I'll be doing virtual office hours, so you can join me. That's our 1-hour session. That's very informal. You can hop in and out, but any questions that you might have, if you just need someone to brainstorm with, feel free to pop in at any point in that hour, and you'll be able to ask any questions. And then finally, the other two events that we already have scheduled for January, if you are a demonstration grantee, whether NYCP or ACE, we have our January talking stick. And for those ACE grantees, we have our personnel and services webinar coming up on the 21st. So it looks like we have gotten great response on the poll. Thank you for those who took the time to fast finger that in, and for those who grabbed the link and are diligently working on their super quick feedback survey. As you head out, I would invite you, as your final share, to share with us in the chat box. As we think about the different things that we've looked at today, was there something new that you learned? If so, let us know. And how do you think you could use this in your program, particularly those things that were new or different that you learned about today? How could we actually implement this into your projects? So I invite you to share that with us over in the chat box, and I'll even type those prompts there as I also pop up the contact information just in case you need any of that. Remember, you can always contact us at the technical assistance team at oie@seiservices.com. And we look forward to seeing you on our next distance learning session on January 12th. Or for some of you, I'll see you on Thursday for our office hours. Have a wonderful rest of your week and a restful break. And we'll see you in 2021.
Aloha.